Hello, Toon Army. Hope you're all doing all right out there. As always, it's a pleasure to bring you another exclusive update right here on the channel. And remember, we're talking about the best club in the world, our beloved Newcastle United. Let's get straight into today's headline story that's got everyone at St. James Park buzzing. So here's the deal. Newcastle United have set their sights on Liverpool's young centre-back, Quansah, as we look to bolster the backline for next season. Now, this isn't just a rumour floating around. It's real interest, and the lad is definitely on our radar. With the summer transfer window fast approaching, we all know the defence needs strengthening, especially after missing out on key targets in the last two windows. You'll remember the long sagas with Mark Guehi and Abdulkadir Kusanov, both deals that never quite crossed the finish line. Well, now it's Quansah in the spotlight. The 22-year-old has been impressing people at Liverpool, and Newcastle are ready to make a move, with reports suggesting we'd be willing to pay $30 million for him. But there's a twist in the tale, and it's one that might frustrate some of us. Liverpool, according to trusted sources like The Athletic, have zero plans to let Quansah go. Yep, you heard that right, even though he's not been starting regularly. With only 2 Premier League starts under new boss Arne Slot, the Reds see him as part of their future. They're planning around him, and for now, their stance is that he's going nowhere. That hasn't stopped Newcastle before. Though, has it? We've shown interest in Quansah before, all the way back in early 2024 during the PSR financial tightrope we were walking. At that point, there was even talk of including Anthony Gordon in a potential swap deal to bring Quansah in. But Liverpool turned it down. They didn't want to sell then, and it looks like they still don't want to sell now. What's interesting, though, is how Newcastle valued him at that time. $50 million. That's right, $50 million. And that's before Quansah signed a new long-term deal with Liverpool or broke into the England squad. So if that price was high back then, imagine what Liverpool might want now. Probably more. A lot more. But here's the thing. Newcastle have a very valid point. If Quansah isn't playing week in and week out, how can Liverpool justify such a high value? Especially when he could come to Newcastle and slot in perfectly as Fabian Schär's long-term replacement. And let's be honest, he'd get a lot more minutes in black and white than he's getting in red right now. With Paul Mitchell now pulling the strings behind the scenes, we know we're not just going to throw money around blindly. But if there's a young, talented, Premier League-ready centre-back who could grow with us and become part of the project, it's someone like Quansah. Whether Liverpool like it or not, the interest is serious. And you've got to think that if the player himself starts wanting the move, things could shift fast. This saga is just heating up, and it's going to be one to watch this summer. We'll keep you posted on every twist and turn, but what do you lot think? Should we push hard for Quansah or move on to someone who actually wants to leave their club? Let me know in the comments, and remember, no one does it like the Toon Army. That wraps up part 1, folks. Stick around. Part 2 is coming up next, where we'll dive into the big story surrounding Alexander Isak and the $67 million race for Hugo Ekitike. Things are heating up at both ends of the pitch. Alright, Toon Army, welcome back, and if you're just joining us now, we're diving into the second half of today's update, and trust me, it's a big one. Let's talk about Alexander Isak, our superstar striker and arguably one of the most electric talents in world football right now. He's had a phenomenal season, scoring in huge moments, including twice against Liverpool, and let's not forget his goal in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley. The man's a machine in black and white. Naturally, a player this good attracts attention, and not just any attention. We're talking Arsenal, Liverpool, and even clubs from across Europe sniffing around. But let's make something very clear right from the start. Alexander Isak is not for sale. That's not speculation. That's coming from the top. Chairman Yasir Al-Rumayyan himself has made it clear that Isak is staying. In fact, insiders are saying he's the chairman's favorite player at the club. So rest easy, Toon fans. He's not going anywhere this summer. Now, while we're not looking to sell Isak, the plan is to add support for him. Let's be honest, Callum Wilson has been brilliant over the years, but with his contract running down and injury problems piling up, it's looking unlikely that he'll get an extension. That means we're in the market for another striker, someone who can share the load with Isak and help us push higher up the table next season. Enter Hugo Ekitike, a name that might sound familiar. That's because we nearly signed him. In 2022 from Reims, the deal was all but done, but at the last minute, the French striker turned us down and ended up going on loan to Paris Saint-Germain. That move eventually became permanent, but things didn't work out at PSG. Fast forward to now, and Ekitike's been revitalized at Eintracht Frankfurt, scoring 13 league goals and turning heads once again. So, is this finally the time we get our man? Well, it's complicated. Reports from Germany, particularly from Bild, suggest that Arsenal are now the favorites to sign Ekitike at the end of the season. The price tag? A whopping $67 million, and that's based on what Manchester City paid for another Frankfurt player, Omar Marmoush. Yes, the same Marmoush who was once linked to Newcastle, too. So while Newcastle have reignited their interest in Ekitike, breaking our transfer record to bring him in might be too big a stretch, especially when you consider all the other areas of the squad that need improving. We need a right winger after losing Miguel Almiron to Atlanta United in January. We need cover in defense, and we need to beef up midfield options as well. Can we really afford to drop $67 million on one player? It's a fair question, but here's the kicker. Ekitike is open to the Premier League, and he knows Newcastle have been after him for years. That history could work in our favor. On the flip side, Mikel Arteta and Arsenal can offer champions league football, and with their injury problems up front, Ekitike could walk into their starting Yaksats. So where does that leave us? Well, it all comes down to Paul Mitchell, our new sporting director. He's got a massive job this summer. Build on our Carabao Cup success, help Eddie Howe push higher up the table, and make sure the squad is strong enough to compete on all fronts. If he can pull off the Ekitike deal without wrecking our budget, it would be a huge statement. But if not, maybe it's time to move on and find another gem. One thing's for sure, Newcastle United are no longer just a club chasing players. We're a destination. And that's thanks to the incredible support from you lot, the Toon Army, and the vision of those at the top. That wraps up part 2. As always, thanks for being here and for backing the best football club on the planet. Leave your thoughts below. Would you bring Ekitike back into the picture, or would you go after someone else to support Isak? Until next time, take care, look after yourselves, and remember, away the lads.